All right, week 4 recap of NCAA wrestling. Gotta say, this was the biggest and best week of NCAA wrestling we've had so far. Of course, there's other great weeks yet to come. Gonna give you the quick rundown on what happened, the big upsets, the moves, the lineup shifts, etc., on what was a great week of college wrestling. Starting with Iowa versus Iowa State. The Hawks made it 20 in a row. They beat the Cyclones 20 straight years. That's an unbelievable statistic, especially considering Iowa State has had some very high quality teams in that time frame, but Iowa just continues to win. The big story, Angelo Ferrari wrestles 184, gets the win for Iowa. Gabe Arnold does not wrestle. I don't think that means anything significant for this year. I think we'll see Angelo utilized because he may be the best guy at 184 for Iowa this year, but I don't think he will ultimately be the guy. I think he will redshirt. Gabe will wrestle, and then next year, Gabe slides down to 74, and it's a pretty menacing 74-84 for Angelo's redshirt freshman year. And also at 74, notable, the Hawks used Patrick Kennedy. Kennedy won by tech over Aiden Riggins. He looked absolutely fantastic. And they did not use Nelson Brands. And Kennedy absolutely did his job. 174, a weight class to monitor for the next couple weeks or months for the Iowa Hawkeyes to see who they ultimately use. Of high concern for Iowa, Ja'Cory Teamer goes down with an apparent hamstring injury. It did not look great. He tried to gut it out. Tom Brands and the training staff pulled the plug on the match after it was clear Ja'Cory was not going to be able to continue and protect himself. So something to monitor. Pinheiro gets the win via injury default. Drake Ayala back on the good foot with a win over Evan Frost. He got 3 takedowns, 2 single legs, and 1 slide by to Frost, 1 takedown. It was close in the third period, and Drake made it happen. So great showing there by him. Other notable results at 197, Stephen Buchanan dominated Christian Carroll. Carroll's looked really tough this year, but Buchanan just a different sort of level right now for Christian. And then at heavyweight, it was a little excitement for Iowa fans as Younger Bastida started and got 2 takedowns against Keeter, but Keeter locked up a near side cradle. Looked like maybe he could almost take him over, but couldn't quite do it, and ultimately it was Younger Bastida getting the win there. So that was Iowa State in a nutshell. And then you got Penn State, big weekend for them as they're trying to not only wrestle at the Black Knight, but sort of solidify some of their starting positions. And I think they got some pretty clear answers, honestly, and feel like we have a pretty good picture of what the Penn State starting lineup is going to be. Starting at 125, Lightning Luke Lillidahl, you know the name. He wins the Black Knight in dominant fashion. He takes out Penn State teammate Kurt McHenry, who he was kind of in the roster battle with. Pretty definitive win there, and then a dominant win in the finals for Luke. Can fully expect him to be the guy for Penn State at 125 this year. And yes, he can win a national title. There's no question. Some people say I'm a little ahead of myself, but I'm not alone in that thought. And I think, given the volatility at 25, which I'm going to get to, no question in my mind, Lightning and Luke can get it done. At 157, Alex Facundo, he made the cut down to 157, trying to find a way into this Penn State lineup, but looks like Tyler Kasek, at least for the time being, going to be the guy for Penn State. He beat Facundo, 1 takedown match, pretty close one, something that's not unexpected when teammates compete against one another. But it's ultimately Kasek, who was 3rd last year at NCAAs, and you figure between the head-to-head win for Kasek and the fact that he was able to place really high as a true freshman last year, that's got to get him in good position to be the starter for Penn State this year at 157. And then 197, another one where, you got Lucas Cochran, who's a tough guy. He's been, he never got that starting opportunity, but he's spot started a few times. He has some nice wins in his career, including one over Slavakuski, an All-American from Rutgers. But it's Josh Barr, who not only dominates Connor Mirasola, a big prospect, true freshman for Penn State, but then he majors Lucas Cochran, who is really good, tough guy to score on. Josh Barr looks really, really good. I can't wait to see him against more and more competition to see where he really fits in, because we saw over the summer, great showing in freestyle, great adjustments, right? Aiden Sinclair kind of dominated him at U20 Open, and then in the U20 World Team Trials, it was all Josh Barr, and then he had a great showing at U20 World Championship. So Barr clearly improving. He was a big prospect. This is probably not his ideal weight. He's probably 184, but it looks like he's going to be just fine at 197. So that's those 3 weights are the ones still maybe a little bit in flux. Feels like they're pretty solid right now for Penn State. Oklahoma State had a pretty action-packed weekend, taking on Wyoming and Arizona State. Against Wyoming, Troy Spratley, he had he won. He had not lost yet this year. But it was some close matches. He's giving up penalty points. You're like, man, Spratley looks a little vulnerable. And then Volk comes out. Jory Volk, ranked number 2 for Wyoming, comes out. He gets the first takedown. But then Spratley gets a takedown in the third period and then takedown and sudden victory for the 7-4 win over number 2 Jory Volk. So a really strong showing this weekend by Troy Spratley. He's going to climb the rankings. And yes, he's a guy that can win 125. There's no question about it. He majored Richard Figueroa last year, the national champion. So good start to the year for Troy Spratley. Excited to see what he can do at Vegas. And for Jory Volk, he loses not only to Spratley, but also Lorenzo of Oklahoma. That's a loss that I don't think is likely to repeat if you watch how that match went down. But he didn't get it done, and that's a back-to-back weigh-in for Jory. Maybe that played a little bit of role. He didn't seem to fade. He just was so close on some takedowns, couldn't quite finish him. But to see a number 2 go 0-2 on the weekend, certainly something worth mentioning for this week recap. Also, for Oklahoma State, Wyatt Hendrickson took out Colton Schultz dominantly in that heavyweight match. He got a reversal, put Colton Schultz on his back, had another takedown. Schultz got a late takedown off of a Hendrickson shot when Hendrickson was pushing for the major. But really, this match was all Wyatt. So really nice win for him. And then Dean Hamady, I want to see him against some tougher competition. But right now, man, he's just mauling everyone he's been facing. His offense looks great, high attack rate, good finishes, great work from top as usual with his cradles. He's got a crab ride as well. DJ Hamady looking like maybe someone that's going to enter the title contending conversation at 174. And Cam Amin for Oklahoma State, he falls to Nico Ruiz. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I'm high on Nico Ruiz. I think he's going to be really good. And so this win over Cam Amin, not a huge shock for me. But if you look at how it went down, I don't think there's a lot of reason for alarm for Cam Amin and Oklahoma State fans, as Cam was really close on a number of takedowns, just couldn't quite finish. And that's a credit to Ruiz, and his defense and strength is going to keep him in a lot of matches. But ultimately, it's Ruiz getting the win in sudden victory. It was kind of his only committed attack, but he made the most of it, taking out Cam Amin. Also for Oklahoma State, Carter Young dropped 2 matches, so trying to figure things out there. But otherwise, Oklahoma State looking really, really strong, top to bottom. Very, very good team for Coach Taylor. And their next competition is going to be Cliff King, Las Vegas, which I want to remind you right now, that's in less than 2 weeks in Las Vegas. First weekend in December, live on FloWrestling. It's bar none the toughest collegiate wrestling tournament in the country, the entire regular season. You can watch it all live on FloWrestling. So make sure you're tuning in for that. We saw the return of Gable Steveson, and he is officially next topic category, meaning 285. There's not a lot of discussion about who's going to be the national champion. In my opinion, it's going to be Gable. As great as Greg Herfleet is, as great as Nick Feldman's improving. You got Younger Bastida, but no one is in this guy's category. No one's in his strata. We saw him wrestle Tay Gadali, who we just watched him kind of handle Nick Feldman, and it was a 20-4 beatdown from Gable Steveson. He looks bigger, just as fast, more powerful. He's just on another level. And Minnesota just generally looking very tough. They had a ranked guy at every weight class, I believe, and their back half is absolutely disgusting. 184 Max McAnally. I've been talking about him. I'm going to continue to talk about him. He's still not lost in his collegiate career. All tech falls this year. Can't wait to see him as he starts to face more top 10 ranked competition, because I think McAnally is going to be a problem. Of course, Isaiah Salazar is a stud. He's up at 197 for the Golden Gophers. Minnesota looking really, really strong so far this year. UNI took out South Dakota State, tie-breaking criteria in that duel. A lot of exciting matches, but it was Parker Keckheisen taking out Berge of South Dakota State, All-American. And it was a pretty dominant win, but no major decision this time for Keckheisen in what was a great duel at the UNI Dome. A Unidome, I guess they call it. But yeah, great duel there between two really, really strong programs. Illinois took out Missouri last week as well. Illinois, another team that they redshirted a bunch of guys. Now they're really tough. Notable results there. Bronigal really gave Keegan O'Toole a tough match. Got the opening takedown. Actually had 2 leg attack takedowns against Keegan O'Toole. Keegan ends up getting the major off of a late takedown and near fall, but don't let the score fool you. This was a very close, competitive match. No doubt about it. Um, Other interesting results there. We saw Edmond took out Joffrey. Scholes wins by injury default over Steed. So a good duel there, but Illinois continues to look really tough. Lucas Bird at 133, I should mention him as well. Man, he looks like a guy that can wrestle in the NCAA finals at 133 for Illinois. They got a really good team in Champaign, no doubt about that. At the Navy Classic, Danny Wask at 174 beat Lenny Pinto. Pinto down from 184 to 174, and is a 10-5 win for Wask. That's an impressive win against a very tough Lenny Pinto. And Antrell Taylor takes out Ethan Styles. They were teammates last year. Now wrestling in the finals is an overtime win. Ethan Styles for Oregon State. Someone to maybe keep your eye on, as I think he's going to have a really fine year for Oregon State and could potentially climb the rankings. Virginia Tech takes out Rutgers. But the biggest result there was Shane Cartagena-Walsh taking out TJ Stewart. Stewart dropping matches in back-to-back weeks. And it was really, TJ had a hard time generating any sort of offense. Nice win by Cartagena-Walsh, who is in what I would guess is a roster battle with Brian Soldano of Rutgers. So we'll see who emerges there as their starter. Last night, we had some Monday night action. Lachlan McNeil took out Cannon Webster from Illinois. In overtime, it was an 8-1 win, but obviously a very close competitive match that Lachlan McNeil ended up winning. And Gavin Kane takes out Edmund Ruth, which, Ruth continuing to struggle. He's taken a couple losses now on the year. So we'll see if he's able to get kind of right the ship, as Illinois has got a good team, but Ruth's supposed to be a big part of that, and he's had a tough November. But things can round themselves out. Wrestlers can obviously improve and find some more consistency. But it was a great week of wrestling. Kind of a slower week this week with Thanksgiving. Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving and not a lot of wrestling action to pay attention to. So spend some time with your family, because in less than 2 weeks, it's a huge one. You've got Cliff King Las Vegas, Penn State taking on Lehigh the next day, Iron Man for you high school wrestling enthusiasts. So 2 weeks from now, going to be an amazing, less than 2 weeks. Shoot, it's Tuesday now, so it's coming up fast. We're going to have some more great wrestling action. Thanks for tuning in. What I miss? Any other key results that I forgot to mention? Put them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great Thanksgiving.